So, before we get started, quick disclaimer. The game we're talking about today is 4 years old at the time of writing, and a full playthrough of the story takes about an hour. That's right, 1 hour. There's a complete playthrough with no commentary on my second channel if you'd like to watch that first. Because I am going to spoil everything. You've been warned. This isn't just a video game, it's a music album, which is an interesting concept in its own right, but what made me buy it in the first place was its design. The game has very little dialogue. There's some narration at the start, and then another tidbit at the end. That's it. That's the entirety of what is directly told to you, the player. It's enough to understand the gist of the game, sure, but what if narration wasn't the only form of storytelling in the game? What if there were important, masterfully crafted details just hidden in plain sight? What if there was something more? Granted, not much needs to be explained through exposition, but what makes this interactive album so special is what it shows you through its music as well as its visual design. The villains, the areas, the songs.
And again, it just works.
Everything is cohesive from start to end. Each landscape is unique, down to its colors, matching the overall feel of the region. You could even say that the visuals pop. Get it? Because it's pop music? Okay. Dad jokes aside. Each level both has and is a musical track, and the boss stages are the rare few with vocals. Lyrics are the only form of dialogue for the vast majority of the game, so I think it's fair to assume that these words are meant to be relevant not only to the bosses, but also to the main character. After all, there is only one vocalist, which makes her and the protagonist our only constant companions throughout the entire journey. As soon as you fire it up for the very first time, the game starts showing its hand. There's a short cutscene that plays if you manage to resist the urge to mash buttons on your controller. We're treated to some exposition, and our first look at the main character walking out of a falafel shop before hopping onto her skateboard. Her skateboard has mismatched wheels. 2 of them are hot pink, and the other 2 are yellow. These colors represent the start and the end of your journey, respectively. And because a skateboard is a means of transportation that brings you from one place to another, in this case from hot pink to yellow, from the beginning to the end, it's a nice little touch. After this cutscene, your intrusive thoughts may be telling you to start game, but if you're a patient person, you get to hear the opening song. Here's the final verse before the chorus. A question directly followed by the first chorus. The singer feels the need to ask why the sudden goodbye. At first, she doesn't seem to understand, but listen to what comes immediately after the first chorus. Well, you guessed it, that was the second chorus, and she echoes the sentiment. She no longer feels the need to ask why. There is no question anymore. Maybe she's come to understand. It's almost as if between both choruses, much like the skateboard and its colorful wheels, this brief tune is symbolic of your journey, both yours and the heroine's. By the end credits, you, the player, will have gone from incomprehension to understanding, just like the singer did, and just like one would travel from point A to point B, from a beginning to an end. Once you complete the game, you're sent back right here to this song, and it all comes full circle.
Something's changed.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First things first. Each level in this list is a song, and each song has its own heart-shaped preview image. There are levels called Heartbreak, and around their image, you can see hearts spinning in the background. They look a lot like tunnels, which actually makes perfect sense, since the Heartbreak subspace is the space between each separate area of the game, and you only ever access it by hopping into heart-shaped portals. Now, Heartbreak is an excellent name choice too. These levels serve as breaks since they separate different villains and pocket universes from each other. For the first track, Clair de Lune, there's a fairy in the background, and as you go through the stage list, it's replaced with a mask corresponding to each area's boss. The background fairy and masks all move in one single direction, or spin, I guess, for the last level. Except for the coolest level in the game, Parallel Universes. We'll get back to that one a little later. There's also a special effect in the background of Forest Dub, which makes you feel like you're tripping on some gas station fairy dust, courtesy of your local biker gang. That's almost exactly what happens in the level, by the way. I swear I'm not making that up. After actually starting the game, a small fairy appears and guides you to the beginning of your journey.
Hey!
Wait a minute, that sounds kind of familiar.
Listen!
So, one quick thing. Tarot cards. Tarot cards are mainly meant for fortune telling. Each card has an image and represents an arcanum, sort of like a face card in a deck of playing cards. One key difference is that instead of having 3 nearly identical face cards of varying suits, tarot cards are all different. Each arcanum means something unique, and the interpretation of the cards varies wildly depending on if the card is flipped in its upright or upside down position. There are 22 major arcana in total, and I'll mention the ones important to the story as we go along, with a rapid fire round and short description at the end for all of them. In the opening cutscene, you learn that most of the characters in the game actually are major arcana, and you're also told about your mission.
Before the divine trio started to fade, they created heroin from the shards of a broken heart and hoped that she would one day be strong enough to save their world.
By the way, this isn't just a cute little spawn animation. The fairy that you meet at the start of the level actually is the broken heart. As you gain control of your character on the bittersweet Starway, the prelude ends and the real track begins, both because the musical track progresses to its next phase, but also because you're placed onto a literal track. As you catch the fairy/broken heart and embrace your role as heroine of this story, you become the Fool. That's not as bad as it sounds. The Fool Arcanum is usually the very first card in the major arcana roster, and it bears the number 0. And there's a reason most of the protagonists from the Persona games are also portrayed as the Fool. It represents potential, innocence, freedom, and beginnings. The card, as well as your outfit, are both light blue, a color of serenity, calmness, introspection. You also bear the mark of Venus on your shoulder, which is a symbol of, well, a lot of things really, but love, first and foremost. Through the Mystic Portal we go, into the Heartbreak subspace. Here, you surf through the colorful void, riding the Devil card, straight to the first major area of the game. Hate Hell Valley. Jesus Christ, that's edgy. As you turn one wheel into 2 and ride your shiny new motorcycle for the very first time, you notice 2 main colors permeating the area, purple and pink. Not just any pink, but we'll get to that very soon. At the end of your joyride through this valley of buildings and towards oncoming traffic, the dancing devils await. They're wearing pointed masks and matching costumes in hot pink. See, I told you that wouldn't take long. Which is a brilliant design choice. Hot pink is one of the hottest colors in the warm-cold color spectrum, and both the colors heat and name live up to the hell and hate hell, all of which complement the dancing devil name. The Devil Arcana symbolizes restraint, the emotions that we repress in our daily lives, such as anger, lust, passion, wrath, etc. These emotions blend superbly with the color scheme and can also be associated with fire, which, again, devil, hell, you get the point. As you battle your demons, the landscape starts to flash red. So you dodge their blaze kicks and their fireballs until they pull out their final trick, tearing the ground open and engulfing you in a valley of flames. Fitting imagery. Hell. Hell. Even their title card between levels makes sense. The top left part of the letters D, E, and V is pointed to the left, like 3 sets of horns facing left. In the very first stage preview image that they appear in, one of them is facing left. And there are 3 pointed letters because there are 3 dancing devils. If that wasn't enough, the S at the end of devils extends to serve as both an underline for added flair and as a pointed devil tail. Perfect cohesion, even down to the song. The track for this level is called Begin Again, and it also plays into this imagery. It sounds, and to be fair, it is kind of sad. The lyrics describe the painful end of a relationship, but also the hope of beginning anew, hence, begin again. However, despite the sad tone of the music and the fierce imagery and colors of the level, the singer insists that she's strangely alright. There's no clear hint as to why until... Oh, so maybe she was the one who broke things off. I guess that would explain why she's alright with how things are turning out. Maybe there was ever-increasing distance between her and her partner, which led to who knows how many months or years of resentment and anger bottled up and repressed. Oh, shit.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
Huh. I guess the devil really is in the details. Chasing after the moon, we arrive in the Woe Woe Woods. If the colors here look familiar, that's because they are. They're a perfect match for your outfit. The light blue sky matches your top, and the dark navy ground and trees match your pants. We didn't cover navy earlier, but it's a color that conveys authority and, most importantly, stability, which makes it a very fitting choice of color for the ground and the tree trunks. They're very different colors, but they're both shades of blue, which is the de facto color of sadness. Ever heard of feeling blue? There's a reason these are the Woe Woe Woods, after all. At the end of this track, the Howling Moons bar your path. They wear wolf masks, and they're repping the same color as you are, with the top and bottom swapped. The Moon Arcanum symbolizes intuition, illusion, and, especially, the subconscious. The wolf actually isn't an arcanum, just an animal, but it usually also embodies intuition and wisdom. Fun fact, their tarot card has 2 stone towers in the background, and there are several small stone towers and structures throughout the woods, even ramparts in their boss level. I don't really have much else to say about them, other than the fact that the final song, Dead of Night, is an absolute banger. That, and I guess in their title card, the M and the S form a crescent shape below moons, plus the opposed slants of both letters resemble a waxing, waning lunar cycle. Anyway, you get to enjoy psychedelics and mercilessly gun down robots on your way to Dead of Night. By the way, your bullets fire automatically, and the initial projectile burst is shaped like a little heart. Isn't that cute? During their boss level, in sync with the chorus of the song, the Howling Moons summon a massive 3-headed robo-wolf. It has round eyes which are colored in when the screen flashes pink, coloring the eyes like a blood moon. The rest of the time, the eyes are blank, resembling a new moon. The chorus throws some shade at the dancing devils. That verse can mean multiple things, but in the context of the Devil Arcanum, it means that caring only for one thing in particular can have disastrous consequences. For instance, focusing only on negative, repressed emotions such as anger, things that tick you off, the fire, if you will, can leave you blind to everything else. This is especially true in relationships, where an exclusive focus on negativity prevents you from seeing everything else there is to actually enjoy about your relationship and your partner. This verse also implies a progression between the songs and bosses. After the fire comes a machine with empty eyes, likely blind. There's also some foreshadowing. We'll get to meet death much, much later, as well as the Sun Arcanum. Us probably refers to a pair of lovers, and the Endless Highway, in my opinion, is a clear reference to a level called Night Drift. The final noteworthy verse is this. Going off my assumptions that the singer is a narrator of sorts, and that there is continuity between the different tracks, this would mean that despite being the one to break things off and being supposedly alright with the end of her romance, the singer still feels utterly lost after her breakup. And that's a totally normal feeling, especially in the aftermath of a long relationship. You spend so much time with the same person at almost every moment and for nearly every activity, no matter how mundane, that suddenly having to be alone at all times becomes a very alienating experience. Keeping in mind the passage about blindness, I think the emotion depicted here is what follows once the flames of wrath burn out. A deep, deep sadness. The Howling Moon's eyes, as well as their machines, are empty because there's no anger left. There are no strong emotions left. They, like the singer, feel nothing but loss, and they're stuck wandering the woe-woe woods, wallowing in their own misery, with no end or exit in sight. Thus concludes the 2-part cautionary tale about letting powerful emotions consume you. Remember the 2 stone towers on the moon card? Guess what our next arcanum is? That's right, it's the Tower. After wisdom, the moon, comes understanding, the Tower. The Tower symbolizes a recent disaster, chaos. In this case, a tremendous heartbreak. Some interpretations of this arcanum add that the Tower depicts an awakening or a revelation, which is what normally would happen after heeding words of wisdom. For this next section, we have to climb up a tower on a freaking motorcycle, weaving through obstacle after obstacle in order to take to the sky. Twilight Cry Sky, to be exact. Immediately upon arrival, you notice a pink skyline, but it's clearly a different shade than in Hate Hell Valley. And is that orange down below? It is! A new color! The sunset color palette is a stellar choice for Twilight, which is the time of day when the sun is below the horizon, between sunset and nighttime. At the end of this first level, you meet your baddie, earn the power of love,
Scott earned the power of love.
win your first sword fight, and cut her in two. Shout out to the foreshadowing in the level logo, which is a sword, separating two halves of a mask. Her original mask is a black and white heart, but once split, the two stereo lovers each wear a broken mask of either color. The one with the white mask has a black eye and brighter lipstick. The one with the black mask has a white eye and darker lipstick. Cool little touch. Their eyes being the opposite color of their respective mask is reminiscent of the yin and yang, which symbolizes dualism. More specifically, two opposing forces that are connected, balanced, and complementary to each other. Kind of like lovers. You rarely see a relationship where both people have nearly identical personalities and tempers. Opposites attract is a saying for a reason, and dualism is what makes a lot of things just work. Not just romantically. Think back to any media you've enjoyed with an unlikely duo of protagonists who are wildly different from one another, like a good cop, bad cop pair of investigators, or Joel and Ellie from The Last of Us. You get the point. For me, this is what takes the cake. Their title card's background animation is a diagonal line in the middle of the screen, which then spreads out to both the left and to the right. Like how the villain was halved. This duality is also present in the font choice. The font used for stereo is much straighter and square, if you will, than the font used for lovers, which is angular. Or, better yet, if you're of sound mind, you know that mono only has one audio channel, and its eventual successor, stereo, consists of two or more separate audio channels. Now, dear viewers, do you remember the level I told you about earlier? Parallel universes? Well, this is it, boys. The villains snap their fingers in tune with the music and change the level layout every time. It may be simple, but it is by far one of the coolest mechanics I've ever witnessed for a level. Each snap lives up to their name, too. If you're wearing headphones or if you have a decent set of speakers, close your eyes and listen. The white mask's snap sounds like it comes from the left, since she's on your left. And the black mask's comes from the right. They each have their own dedicated audio channel. With each snap of their fingers, the landscape and track alternate between sunset and dark, trapping you in twilight. The black mask's dimension is darker than her counterparts, and then it's back to sunset once the white mask snaps. As the level progresses, the mechanic's complexity increases ever so slightly. You know how the definition of parallel implies two things going in the same direction, but that will never ever touch? The way the lovers pose in the preview image implies symmetry, like they can never touch. Well, lo and behold, when they clap their hands together, we get a third new dimension with an orange hue, which is the warmest color in the game thus far. Though they're, technically trying to get you to crash your motorcycle into an obstacle and die a horrible, painful death, the lighting is so soft and heartwarming. It's almost like they can't help the warmth that they feel when they touch the one they love. They also switch up their cadence and order later on, just to spice things up. When faced with a dead end, the fool decides to snap her own fingers, revealing a cool cyan dimension, matching her own arcanum and outfit. Oh, and the preview image for the level in the menu is split down the middle vertically, with masks moving outwards from the middle of the screen, serving as an exception to every other level image in the game and teasing the level's mechanic. That being said, I do find there was a bit of a missed opportunity here. This stage is literally one level away from being the perfect halfway point in the level list. With the vertical split down the middle, the symmetry would have been perfect. As for the Lover's Arcanum, while it does symbolize love and relationships, it can also refer to options, choices. In love, much like in life, sometimes you reach a crossroads where you can choose to go in one direction or another. Maybe you'd like to see where things go with this one person you're attracted to who may not like you, or you decide to take a chance on someone you know for a fact is head over heels for you. Regardless of what you choose, the truth is you can almost never have both. And if you take too long to make up your mind, you'll likely end up with neither option. That's what this Arcanum symbolizes above all, in my opinion, and it's pretty cool that the boss stage portrays this. Side note, white mask is a white motorcycle, black mask is a black motorcycle. Cool. At the very start of the boss level, aptly titled Mine, they split up, and you are presented with your first choice. Who do you pursue? Or rather, which one do you want to pursue? Hesitate for too long, and you crash into a wall, losing both. You cannot go backwards, and exactly like in life, you cannot pick the other option once you've decided. Unless, of course, you restart the level, since this is a video game, but then you've got to start from scratch, so the point still stands. Shortly after, they split up a second time, for good measure, presenting you with yet another choice. Will you pursue the same option, or will you try your luck with the second prospect this time around? The song Mine starts off like this.
I have laid my eyes on you. Listening to such sparkling blue. I never won, but I can't. You'll be mine and mine alone.
It sounds like the singer is describing the start of a relationship, when the honeymoon phase is still fresh and sparkling new, and she's already made her choice. She wants the certainty of choosing the one she can, quote, own, the one that can give her what she desires. Since this is halfway into the game, smack dab in the middle of the fool's journey through this post-breakup cycle, you could interpret this in two very different ways. One, the very first verse is in the past tense, so she's referring to her previous relationship and recalling her past love, the cause of her current heartbreak. The warmth in the landscape throughout Twilight Cry Sky would then be nostalgic reminiscing of the past. Or, option 2, despite not having completed her healing process, she started a new relationship, or is perhaps seeing a lover. She could be hooking up, or she's on a rebound. In these levels, there's an emphasis on love, and not only on touch in parallel universes, but on touch of varying rhythm and speed. Make of that what you will, which honestly could be consistent with either theory. There's duality rearing its head again.
Won't you be my lovely liar? You're the story I desire. It doesn't matter if it's fake. I love to only say.
Regardless of which interpretation you prefer, this verse adds yet another layer. She's following her desire. She's doing what or who she wants, but not necessarily what she needs.
Really makes you think.
Even if her relationship is fake, in the sense that it's not, true love, or it's just casual, or that it should by no means last very long, she wants and asks to be lied to keep up a charade. This could be for a lot of different reasons, mind you. Fear of being alone, only feeling good about herself when validated through someone else's affection, the list goes on. But now, it's time for the bridge. Do you know what a bridge is in music? Simply put, it's a transition between two parts of a song. The bridge, for Mine, actually plays as you drive through falling sections of a shattered bridge.
Like many times the deal was made. Days of burden on astray. What isn't real can never fade. We prefer the masquerade.
Oh, And in this example, it doesn't just bring two separate parts of the song together, it also bridges two separate parts of the level together, separating the ground and the sky sections of the level. Absolutely immaculate design.
Oh, beautiful.
Anyway, in the bridge, the singer expresses a very transactional view of a relationship. She's aware that she's choosing fake relationships, convincing herself that they can never fade, that they can't hurt her if she doesn't view them as genuine. Yeah, that's probably as bad as it sounds. I mean, I guess if it's not a real relationship, more of a trade offer, how upset can you be when things fall apart, right?
The worst trade deal ever made by any country, I think, in the world.
Again, whether the song is describing a past or present situation doesn't really matter. The main takeaway here is that she sheds light on how she views previous romantic partners, as well as her own unhealthy attitudes in choosing them. You can't really choose who you're attracted to. Sometimes your heart wants what or who it wants, but you always have the final say over the option that you choose to pursue. With that, portal time. The game's second to last area, the Desert of Doubts, is home to my second favorite villain, the Hermit, or rather, Hermit 64, the gamer girl. You traverse this nearly barren wasteland with nothing but your trusty chariot and some sick drifting under a turquoise sky. The car's license plate says car with a K 120C, which is the license plate of a Lotus 7 Series 2 car that appeared in the opening of a British TV show from 1967 called The Prisoner. Your car, however, is nowhere near as cool, let's be honest. As for the turquoise sky, turquoise represents calmness, tranquility, growth, and communication. Driving down this nearly endless highway, you notice there's not really much infrastructure. Besides for, obviously, the road, there's no architecture surrounding you, just power cables, boulders, and transmission towers. It feels very empty, desolate, and remote. But what's interesting about this ride is that as you approach Hermit 64, you start to see satellite dishes. Now, why would a hermit, someone who by definition lives in isolation, need communications equipment? The Hermit card is a symbol of inner guidance and soul searching, something that really is only possible when spending a lot of time on one's own. Living up to its reputation, the Hermit card wordlessly teaches you a new warp mechanic in its preceding heartbreak level, so it's a pretty fitting name, all things considered. Hermit 64's title card sports two horizontal lines, one above and another below her name, which make it resemble her headset. As for the presence of satellite dishes here, considering that this is the aftermath of a breakup, it can mean a lot of things. Maybe she needs some time on her own, but still wants to be able to keep in touch with the outside world and her loved ones. Maybe she's trapped in her own head, still going about her daily life, surrounded by the cacophony of modern life all around her. Maybe she's just withdrawn herself from anything even remotely social, but is still holding out hope that someone, anyone, would just reach out. We're given very little time to ponder these mysteries, as we are turned into a Game Boy Color cartridge. Yes, I am that old. And inserted into her virtual reality headset. The biggest takeaway here is that one day, VR headsets will let you emulate Game Boy Color games. Hell yeah!
Yes, science!
As the player, you watch the fool transform into the game you're about to play, which brings a whole new meaning to the expression, playing the fool. We get whisked away to a realm of reverie, only to awaken in the world we knew. That's the name of the song. I really like how the camera shifts throughout this boss level. You're almost always in the center of the screen, and the camera will pan left, right, up, and down to follow you, and showing you a bit more of the boss's face and the boss's head. The camera also rotates at certain points of the song, as does your player icon, but your controls adapt to the rotation without ever being inverted or confusing. Back to the world we knew.
They say begin again. They say begin again.
Hey, wait, that's a Dancing Devils song. That kind of hits close to home. The vocalist sounds tired of being told to simply begin again, to start over, to get over her heartbreak and back onto the dating scene like it was the easiest thing in the world. That second verse pairs with this.
I'm too young to remember when the world was alive. I'm too old to start changing and too tired to revive.
Too young to remember, too old to start changing, and too late to start anew. You and me both, sister. Despite the serene tone of the song, the lyrics are pretty dismal. She sounds utterly hopeless, stranded in a desert full of doubts, like there's no point to anything. And she also has an excuse, conveniently, for everything. Too young for this, too old for that. Her prolonged solitude has left her with a defeatist mentality and, instead of looking forward to anything in the future, she chooses to stagnate, preferring endless escapism instead of facing her doubts and her insecurities. In her bid to be anywhere but in her own head, she plays game after game, sinking countless hours into her virtual reality headset, which she ironically wears, you guessed it, on her head, the one place she doesn't want to be. It feels like a commentary on the futility of rampant escapism to escape one's woes. Try as you might, you can't outrun your own head, your mind, your thoughts, your self-judgments, your doubts, your fears, your insecurities. You're stuck with them for life. There is one last noteworthy verse.
I'll treasure any fragments left behind.
So, Hermit64 has trouble letting go of the past, and she uses gaming binges to avoid dealing with her unpleasant thoughts. Ah, finally. Love Dead City. The only region whose name has no rhyme, no alliteration. Do you remember that verse in Dead of Night? The one foreshadowing later bosses? The singer mentioned outrunning death, but that's the exact opposite of what we're doing. The roles are reversed. We're here to hunt it down. As we flip that lyric upside down, so too are we flipped upside down, thanks to this level's mechanic. Instead of meeting death at the end of the level like we previously have, she's decided to meet us halfway and show us what she can do. She stops her bike at the end of the level and spawns a legion of bat skull creatures. The next level is an on-rails shooter, so let's take a quick breather to just talk about Death for a bit. The Death card is the same color as Little Death's hair, yellow. Not because she's literally electrifying, but because it's the color of optimism. It's cheerful and energetic, and it makes sense that this boss is depicted as a child. She's playful and full of life, ironically. Part of me also thinks that the reason she's so much younger and smaller is to show her as less intimidating, which fits her arcanum. The Death card represents change, transformation, and endings. Death being the end of all living things, this card manifests the end of something. It could be the end of a relationship, the end of the game, the end of the heroine's heartbreak. In a sense, though death is not directly synonymous with rebirth, rebirth cannot take place without death. without an ending preceding it. In that sense, it's the bringer of the end, but also the bringer of beginnings. The rainfall in Love Dead City represents renewal and cleansing, which enriches this juxtaposition of ends and beginnings. Little Death takes one of multiple paths in the level you first meet her. Contrary to the stereo lovers, you can actually choose not to follow her and suffer no penalty. Even if you don't take the same path she does, she will be waiting for you at the end of the level. Death is what ultimately awaits everyone, after all. As for Little Death's title card, unfortunately it doesn't have much going for it. The T in Death is replaced with a scythe and shaped like the number 7, which cuts into the letter A. Scythe is a 6-letter word, and if you account for its numerical shape, the 7, 6 plus 7 gives you 13, which is the number on the Death card, but honestly that's kind of a reach. Little Death, however, is an expression best known in French, la petite mort. It used to refer to loss of consciousness, but over time, it came to be associated with, and I quote, the sensation of post-orgasm as associated to death, either the feeling of profound sadness or transcendence, nicknamed post-nut clarity. You know how it is. The boss track is titled Inside, and it's a pretty catchy number. In a literal way, if it weren't for the roads and buildings, it almost looks like you're in the human body. There's electricity connecting certain road segments as if they were neurons. There's perfectly round tunnels which resemble veins, arteries, or even an esophagus. The bridges here look like spines, and there's even a human heart. The song feels like it's about a whole lot of things, honestly. Readapting to old habits. Staying up super late at night, talking to an old friend you haven't seen in a while, or with someone completely new. It also touches on the clumsy awkwardness of readapting to these interactions. And let's not forget, the words you need to say are stuck inside, which complements the anatomical hints in the level's design. Deep. I think that ultimately Little Death's song is about a metaphorical rebirth. Re-experiencing the feeling of being in good company, reliving what it's like to just watch time fly, rediscovering activities you used to love, reminding yourself how it feels to just feel good, to express yourself confidently, to reconnect with yourself on the inside. There's one thing in particular about the stage that I really love, and it's the nonsensical roads you can see at certain parts. It's almost like surrealist art. There are some completely disjointed segments that would be absolutely lethal if real-world physics were applied to them, but then there's parts like this. If, theoretically, you were to drive on this road, you would be able to see an end to it from your point of view, but that isn't actually where the road ends. It still stretches on past your perceived end, much further than your eyes can see. It's a relatively small detail, but I think it perfectly captures the meaning of the Death Arcanum. Anyway, just when you think you've got Little Death on the ropes and you collect tons of heart shards, perhaps fragments of previous heartbreaks, she turns bigger and older. Aside for her hair color, her hairstyle is identically yours. Once we put an end to the Ender once and for all, we get to meet the story's final villain in Eyeball. There's not much to really analyze in the Eye's design. There's no title card and no unique color palette, no lyrics, nothing. Eyes, however, can symbolize a lot of things, such as omniscience or clairvoyance, but in a figurative sense, they could also mean the concept of the gaze. Le regard, that's French for the look, by the way, has long been associated with awareness, either of others or of oneself. The latter makes a bit more sense, I reckon.
You can't keep getting away with it!
In one final act of resistance, the Eye assumes command of all 5 of the previous boss arcana, each of them a symbol of an emotion or of an obstacle you've managed to surmount, and it turns all of them on you at once. In this context, you could hypothesize that the Eye is related to clairvoyance, that it symbolizes the future. The heroine is likely going to have to face and overcome these negative emotions again someday, maybe more than once, and she won't necessarily have the luxury of dealing with them one at a time like we have so far. In a sense, this is the final trial of her journey. If you prefer to interpret the Eye as being her subconscious awareness of herself, perhaps she's forcing this final confrontation to steel herself and make sure she's prepared to get back to her normal life. Regardless, once you manage to destroy the Eye, you collect all of the evil arcana, and you lose the powers of the Fool. The Fool leaves your body, absorbs the villain cards, and turns into them one by one. You're no longer playing the Fool. Like in the very first level again, you play a normal woman, and all you have this time is your skateboard. This would be the real final boss fight, except this time things are different. Instead of chasing a dancing devil, you're the one being chased. For the Hermit rematch, the Hermit icon has now been replaced with the Fool wearing the VR headset and your icon. This section is one of my favorites in the game, because unlike the Eye trying to pelt you with the multiple cards, the Fool literally embodies everything that you've experienced thus far. You played the Fool throughout most of the game, and technically she's the one who defeated all of the foes thus far, not the protagonist directly. You become forced to face yourself, or your shadow self, if you're into Jungian psychology. You confront your denial.
Dream it off, the end of love doesn't happen this way.
Defeat your demons and extinguish your anger.
They said diamond knives could kill it, and that our love would live on until it all fades to black. Like a movie, no way back.
Find your own way out of the woods. Cease your meaningless bargaining. Overcome your hopelessness and your soul-crushing solitude. And finally, learn to be yourself again. You don't defeat these specters by punching them or destroying them, but by kissing them on the cheek, by embracing all these different emotions, these parts of you, by loving and accepting yourself. It's a very short segment, but it's the most impactful in the entire game. Oh, and look! And finally, everything comes full circle. You end the game by chasing after the broken heart turned fairy, the same way you did at the start of your journey. Your skateboard, still rocking those same flashy wheels, hot pink for the dancing devils and yellow for little death. With a mended heart, you return to your bedroom a different person.
Something's changed.
That's what plays after the end credits, by the way. We go back to the very first song we covered, armed with new knowledge, and now we understand.
But I'm not done yet.
Now, what is my reason for assuming that the bosses are all meant to be different facets of the heroine? Putting aside all of the design elements we've covered thus far pointing in that direction, it's because of the vocalist. Each boss arcanum has its own song and look, but despite tremendous differences in color and theme, the singer never changes, and I believe that's intentional. The characters don't speak. If they did, they couldn't all have the same voice. Yet, every time there are lyrics, the fool is present. Now, you might be thinking, maybe the singer is the fool. But no, this isn't the fool's voice either. It's yours. Case in point.
What's the word? Does that thing have a name? When familiar surrounded.
And now, as promised, here are all the major arcana in the game. I'm going to gloss over them because I'm not a Hello Kitty and horoscopes kind of girl, nor any kind of girl as a matter of fact. The Magician, Resourcefulness. This card shows up when you suck at the game. No, really, you have to die 3 consecutive times on a given segment before the Magician shows up to ask if you need an adult and if you would like to skip this part. The High Priestess, Sacred Knowledge, one of the 3 cards in the opening cutscene. The Empress, Femininity, one of the 3 cards in the opening. The Emperor, Authority, or a father figure apparently, the buck you chase after. The Hierophant, Spiritual Wisdom, one of the 3 cards at the beginning. The Lovers, Love and Choices, Stereo Lovers. The Chariot, Determination, also your car. Strength, wow, also Courage. One of the Stereo Lovers tosses you this card and it turns into your sword. The Hermit, Soul Searching, Hermit 64. Wheel of Fortune, Turning Points. The wheel turns into your motorcycle. Justice, Fairness, your motorcycle's left gun. The Hanged Man, Surrender. This card turns into a legion of bat skull chimeras. Death, Change, Little Death. Temperance, Balance. Temperance becomes your bow. The Devil, Restraint, the Dancing Devils. The Tower, Chaos. You ride up the tower in one of the heartbreaks. The Star, Hope. At the start of Heartbreak 5, you fall through the star and acquire a boat, the Lily Christine. This is a reference to another game called The Sailor's Dream, by the same developer, Simogo. I wish I knew more, but I haven't had the chance to play it. The Moon, Wisdom, the Howling Moons. The Sun, Warmth. The sun is a spinning ball of death. It also appears in the game as a spinning ball of death. Judgment, Inner Calling, your motorcycle's right gun. The World, ooh. Completion and accomplishment. This one is by far the trickiest. The world card doesn't directly appear anywhere in the game as an actual card, and it's the only exception to the rest of the major arcana in that regard. This arcanum depicts a woman in the sky, either standing or dancing, with specific figures in the corners. These figures represent 4 zodiac signs: Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio. That being said, however, at the very end of the final level, as you float down from the stars, you can actually see the Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio constellations in the background. As for the woman on the card, she is ascending, meaning she is now confident and fully formed, ready for her next state of being, much like our transformed heroine at the end of the game. I think this scene is the in-game depiction of the world card. And last but not least, the Fool, Beginnings, the character you play as. This card is usually numbered 0 and precedes all the others, but in this game it's numbered 22. I also neglected to mention this earlier, but the in-game achievements are all zodiac signs. Each one has a riddle for you to solve, and the disc with all 12 riddles can be flipped to reveal B-sides. It's a super cool aesthetic that blends the mystique of the stars with the game's music, but it just didn't really fit anywhere in the storytelling analysis. So, at the start of the video, I mentioned that every stage had a heart-shaped image in the level list, but it didn't end there. The more time I spent editing, the more hidden hearts and heartbreaks I would find. In backdrops, posture, fight choreography, camouflaged heart after camouflaged heart with no end in sight. The hearts. Oh god, the hearts!
They're everywhere!
Alright, so with that, I hope to see you in February for the next video. It's going to be a game with far more dialogue, so it won't necessarily take the same form as this one, but I aim to entertain nonetheless. Sayonara, Wild Hearts.